That's what I tell the kids, right? Make sure you get the information. What you think about it, that's up to you. What you're going to do with it, that'll soon be up to you. But make sure you get it. See, there's nothing worse than being stupid. Nothing. I mean, being broke is bad, but being stupid is awful. And what's really bad is being broke and stupid, right? That's about the end of the world. I mean, there isn't anything much worse than that. Unless you're sick. Sick, broken, stupid. I mean, that is it, right? There's nowhere else to go. So make sure you get the information. It's key. You don't have to like it, but learn it.
The dumbest, smartest shit I ever heard.
So welcome everybody, episode 1. How's everybody doing?
Don't sound so excited.
Right?
Long day at work.
Yeah, right. Welcome to episode 1 of the Idiot Philosophers.
It's good to be
To
here.
my left, Dr. Oz. The
That's to be added.
the big Oz. Oscar Camargo. What's going on, man?
What's going on, guys?
Good. You want to introduce your buddies here?
Yeah. So to my left here, I'll let you guys actually introduce yourselves and kind of let everybody know who you are. So these guys are actually running a new community group in Connecticut called ACE. So I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves and get into it about what it is that you guys are trying to do for the community.
Sure. So my name is Jonah Francis. I am technically one of the founding members, along with this guy right here.
Don't let him fool you.
Nah, not at all. And I own a home care agency in West Hartford. On top of that, I also do coach youth basketball. So it's that time, Thanksgiving, all you kids that don't make the high school or middle school teams, AAU teams, come on this way. Come learn a thing or two. But that's what I'm all about. I love basketball. I've worked for the Connecticut Suns, and outside of that, pass it to the president.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess I'll start with my name, right? Jairo Lemos. Just a local kid from East Hartford, trying to inspire others to think big and never look back, because at the end of the day, when you have a team and you could put a vision together and start executing, anything is possible. This is by far the best country in the world to make things happen. So every second that you let go by wasted is 1 second that you're never gonna get back to reach your dreams. So with that, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business owner, I'm a financial advisor, educating people on the value of financial literacy and having a plan that just ultimately leads to everything else that you could possibly dream and imagine. So I think as one of the founding members, I'm not gonna put titles or roles to anything that I do. Of ACES, the Association of Community Empowerers, our goal is to be able to share our knowledge, because at the end of the day, sharing knowledge is probably the most powerful thing that any man, any woman in their community they could do. So it's truly a blessing. Thank you guys for inviting me and having us here to really just share the love. Jairo Lemos, so thank you, man.
Welcome.
Well, I thought you guys kicked me out. My name's Teddy Pendergrass, aka Teddy Woolsey. I do sales for a corporate recruiting firm in East Hartford. I don't know, so I guess the story behind how I got here tonight, Jairo and I connected, had coffee based on the recommendation of a mutual friend. And we both went together to basically, I guess, just meet another person that was kind of looking to do more, I guess, than just exist. I don't know if it was the caffeine or if it was the look in his eyes, but we had a great conversation, and it was just kind of one of those things where it was just like, yeah, I know this guy's like, he actually means what he says. And we both kind of like have the same vision for not only just wanting better for people and ourselves, but also like how to do that more effectively. And this is kind of the brainchild of that original conversation. So pumped to talk about like what that actually means and how it differs from other good ideas out there. Yeah, there you go.
Cool. And ACE has started. When did you guys start this?
ACE Association of Community Empowerment. By the way, don't let Hyro fool you. He is the president of that organization. Actually, just coming together with these guys, we've actually had quite a few meetings over the last few months, and finally kind of put everything together, put a name to the group here, and really starting to launch everything here for the holidays.
Awesome.
For Hartford, so.
Cool. And do you guys have mission statement, something that one sentence or something that sort of sums it all up? I know you did a great job there, sort of summing it up. Give us sort of an idea of a one-liner, or what is your guys' ultimate goal with this group?
It's hard to put what we want to do in one line, right? If you think about it, there's a lot of work to be done, really. And I would say part of our mission, because I'm going to let my fellow founders, share their idea of what they believe our mission is. But for me personally, my mission with the organization is to really help others realize their potential and be able to not limit themselves with any restrictions, and to thrive based on their own desires, what they feel matters most. So again, it's hard to do a one-liner with what we're doing because there's so much work that needs to be done. But that's my take on it.
So let me try. I guess to help the next wave of young, talented people desiring to make a difference in their own lives and the lives of others in the community. So along with that comes a whole bunch of little goals that we've set aside, which are targeted towards the older teens and also people in their 20s, or young adults in their 20s, to help guide them and help them to build a strategy towards what they're trying to attain in their own individualized goals, and then to help connect them with resources, because that's at the best of what we all do. We all have resources that enable us to continue to be successful, whether that's a strong support system or if that is someone with the access to help them to learn the thing that they need. For me personally, sometimes your resources come in terms of money, but then what you get along with it a lot of times holds no value, right? It's priceless, so to speak. I went to the School of Broadcasting when I figured out I wanted the sports stuff, or I wanted to do the podcast for real. I wanted to figure out how to do the journalism stuff. It just kind of came out of the blue because I just heard a radio station, didn't know what to do next, so I went there, right? And then I stumbled on a mentor, Joe Zone, Channel 3. And it kind of blossomed there since. And talking about those practical steps, when you're seeing people consistently putting in that work every single day, this guy is 62 years old, and he's moving around with a pep in his step still, and he's walking faster than me to the point I gotta run to keep up with his walking. But that's just him leading the way, showing me, I love sports, so I always put him in sports, right? The vets are always giving the rookies a hard time, but that's to show you that wear and tear. That's to build that skin. At the same time, they're coaching you and showing you how you make it through. And based on what you said about the podcast, what your missions is for the podcast, it interlines with exactly what we're trying to do as well, which is be that resource and show them those practical steps, or help them to develop those practical steps to attain that next goal. Because it's not always, sometimes the only thing you can see is the next step. Right?
Yeah, kind of give you guys sort of a quick little synopsis of Oscar's and my vision with this podcast is we were sitting the other day just talking about how in today's culture and in today's society, so many kids wake up every day, they check that Instagram feed, they check that Twitter feed, and they think, oh, one day that's going to be me, right? One day my Twitter's going to go viral.
I still do that.
But you know what I'm saying? They think that all that it takes is one tweet or one Snapchat, and all of a sudden now they're famous. And what they don't realize is that most people who are successful it's taken them years and years and years and years and years of small steps, baby steps, repetitive habits, repetitive positive habits to create something. And that's something that gets missed a lot with the younger generation, something that I wish, I'm going to be 30 next year, and I've sort of sat back and said, wow, if I had realized that success is actually simply a combination of hard work and consistency over time, I could be so much farther than where I am now if I had started when I was 17, if I had started when I was 18, 19, instead of starting when I was 25.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
And so our goal here with this podcast, with the Idiot Philosophers podcast, is to have some fun, but to also, you know, talk to people like you, talk to the ACE group, talk to other groups that are out there, other people who have started from nowhere, who started from the bottom, who started with small little steps and over time have turned themselves into something that they can be proud of, or started something that they can be proud of. So, Joan, I love what you said, because it talked a little bit about your passion and your drive behind starting this and becoming involved in this group. And I would love to hear from Teddy and as well, Hiro. You know, what are your guys' motivations? Where did you give us a little background of who you are and what brought you to a place in your life where you wanted to spread that information and share the wealth, as it were?
Oh man.
Hit it, Teddy.
Teddy, if you can come.
I guess my main influence was my dad. Definitely was not an educated guy by any means. You know, kind of grew up in rural Missouri, got in a lot of trouble, in and out of jail, all that kind of stuff. He straightened his life out eventually, and he took accountability for his life, and you know, hasn't had a drop of liquor and whatever. Sorry, Dad. The guy just grinds, and he's been doing it for decades. And you know, he's got a good paying job now. He, you know, they live in the house and it's paid off, and that's their success. You know, that's their vantage point. That's their framework. So, I guess what I wanted to get out, like as far as like my vision for us and everything, is, I think the obvious thing, like the elephant in the room, like look at us. We the American dream in one room. Look at this. You know what I mean?
Facts.
And Connecticut, I'm not from Connecticut. I'm from Illinois, and where I'm from, it's extremely diverse. And I came to Connecticut, and it wasn't. Especially, I was in Avon, and that is very not diverse.
What are you talking about?
I was like,
diverse.
who are all these people that look like me? This is weird. So I naturally gravitate towards people who honestly don't look a lot like me, which is great, because we all, once you get past that initial like, why are you talking to me? It's these conversations we have are life changing, and they're, we all want the same things, and it's beautiful. So the point is, I think we have a common thread in that we had some sort of a light, we had some sort of an influence, somebody that was there relatively consistently, and that taught us that lottery mentality you were talking about, where everything can change in an instant, or you know, you can even liken it to a religious experience, with like everything can change in an instant. Like if I just say the right words, or pray, or read the right book one time, or watch the right documentary, everything will change. No, it's not going to. You don't go to the gym once and you're in shape. It's long-lasting consistency, and what we're trying to do, at least from my perspective, is tell them why that is worth it. So I think all of us in one room, standing up and saying the same message, coming from different backgrounds, looking entirely different, but having the exact same values, is a very, very powerful message that shows that this is absolutely worth it. This is what you get out of it.
Awesome.
So kind of going off what Malika was saying earlier about how he wished when he was a teenager he kind of knew about the grind. Is there any things you guys did when you were younger that helped you to get where you are today? Is there any advice you could give, or anything you've learned that kind of you wish you knew then that could have changed something? Because kind of listening to this, it's definitely inspiring, but how do I get started? You know, I'm only 17, still in high school. You know, anything you guys can offer up?
I almost jumped out of my seat, man. That's a great question. I wish that I could have put the experience of where I am, I'm almost 30 as well. Like I'll be 30 this year, and you're taught. I don't know if it's subconsciously or indirectly or whatever it is, but we're all taught that like things can happen in an instant, or if you delay enough, or you put it on student loans instead of paying with a part-time job or whatever it is, it's going to be okay. It's not, man. Like I'm paying off a lot of student loans right now because I thought I got to go to college, and I got to go to this college, and I've got to go do this thing. And what it ends up being is that same story. You have to be you just have to start somewhere, anywhere. Just do that, and that will give you a leg up on so many other people that are just sitting there shuffling their feet, trying to figure out which direction to walk while you're already miles down the road.
Well, and to piggyback a little bit off of that, start with something that you enjoy. I think a lot of people are scared to start doing something that they like doing or they want to do because they quote unquote don't have the experience. We're all sitting in this room having zero podcast experience basically, and very little, right? But yet it's not that difficult to do something like this. So it doesn't have to be a podcast, it doesn't have to be a YouTube channel, but find the thing that you like, find your passion, and just start doing it. Even if it means, making a mistake, messing up, something for people who don't know, by the way, that's my little brother Ethan coming out from the clown room. And one thing that I'm very proud of is that he told me, hey, I want to go to broadcasting school. That's ultimately my vision. That's ultimately my goal. And if he does go to broadcasting school, that's awesome. But he also has been able to just come on board and be a part of a couple of different podcasts. It doesn't require a ton of effort, but showing up a couple nights a week, putting in some thoughts, right, doing something that he likes to do, so that, hey, maybe he finds out he hates this and he doesn't waste those 4 years going to broadcasting school, right? Or he finds out that he's fantastic, he's natural at it. The results aren't always important necessarily. It's the actions sometimes that are more important than the end result. And I think a lot of people focus too much on that end result. They focus too much on, hey, where am I going? How am I trying to get there? Right? I need that success. I need that money. I need those dollar bills. And they don't focus on what can I do right now? What can I start doing right now?
I agree with you 100% when it comes to that, but at the same time, I do focus on money. Like money is big. I was the first out of all of my siblings to graduate from college with my bachelor's, which is why when this guy, I saw his master's degree, it inspired me to do more. My little sister, she graduated, and now she graduates with her master's in May. So that's dope. That's absolutely amazing. But I do focus on the dollar because I see where the opportunities also comes from when you are blessed with affluency. I definitely believe that you do need money to be able to get to certain steps, but there's always steps that you can take in the meantime, and you can always be preparing yourself for that, whatever that opportunity is. You asked about how do you get to be finding what it is that you want to do or to avoid making mistakes. The mistakes is how you learn, man. Like, seriously speaking, the mistakes is how you learn. It wasn't until I was sitting down at a desk at whatever job I was sitting down at a desk doing that I figured out that, I would prefer to be wasting my time doing sports. And it wasn't until at this point in time you're like, now I gotta grind at this job, and then I gotta grind at that job, and somehow find a way to do twice as much work on my part-time. So you don't even really have a part-time, man. You got full-time. You got your full-time job, and then there's no way that you can expect to make it by just devoting part-time hours to this thing that you want to take on when people are doing it full-time.
Yeah. To use a line that Oscar taught me, I think you can't make $100,000 on a $30,000 work ethic.
Facts, facts, and everyone wants that 100,000. But I couldn't say it better, man. That's a fact. But it's always the process of elimination, man.
Can you say that line that Oscar you said again?
Yeah. So you can't make $100,000 with a $30,000 work ethic.
That's the advice right there.
Yeah.
Let's take it a step further. Let's take it a step further, okay? You can't make $100,000 off a $30,000 work ethic, right? But guess what? To make $60,000, you gotta have a $200,000 work ethic, okay?
Especially
You want $150,000? You want to make $150,000? You gotta have a $500,000 work ethic, and that's just the dog-eat-dog world that we live in. Unless you're privileged, unless you hit the lotto with some good financial advisors to help you out, it ain't gonna happen. Now, you're a young man. We were all in your shoes at one point or another. You know the best advice I could give you is to not be afraid. Go out there, grab a shovel, grab a rake. How many people in the neighborhood need their lawns and their leaves raked? A shit ton. You go charge $30 a pop, you're gonna be the richest boy in your senior class, boy. Huh? You're gonna be balling out this Christmas. That's the best advice I could give you, bro.
Tell them
You learn from getting dirty.
Tell them what you did last winter.
And I believe you're. Let's line that up. But to what he's saying, right? We learn from our mistakes. Learn from not just your mistakes. Learn from the other people's mistakes, because that basically you're just hitting fast forward. So here's the second best advice I could give you. And I wish I listened when I was your age. When you learn from other people's mistakes, you're literally hitting the fast forward button. You are now ahead.
Yep.
Now you already saw what happens by doing X. And either Y could be good or Z could be better. You have that decision now. So don't be afraid, take control and get dirty. Meaning that if you need to stimulate some type of economy, to Jonah's point, money is fuel for freedom. Money is fuel for freedom. So if what you want to do requires fuel, how are you going to build it? You got to get dirty. You can't be afraid.
Just one more thing to add to that.
Yeah.
It seems like as important as money is, the more important thing is with a lack of money, you still have to have the work ethic, even if you're not getting that money or, you're $10,000 short, however much debt you got. It seems to me like no matter the financial situation, the fundamental is the work ethic, and through that work ethic, then that brings you to the money. And
So spot on. You're catching on quick, and I appreciate that, because what you're hearing here is wisdom. So absorb this, Ethan, and it will be for your benefit. And everyone listening, everyone has the story. So I'll share a little bit about my story, because that's what you had asked a few things before.
Before we hop Myra, sorry. I know Teddy had a point to what we were just talking about.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, because I know we're going to trail off to something. I just wanted to get Teddy's take on that, because I mean that's awesome stuff, and this is the point of this podcast as well, is to really, really share this kind of information for folks that are listening, because we're all wondering how, right? And people always tell us the what, but they don't show us the how, and what other folks go through and that grind that it takes to actually get there. So we'll go back to hire on that point.
The one thing I think that we can all agree upon is that you have to be consistent in anything you're doing in life. And that long-term hard work you have to do. So along the same lines is there's this book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Fantastic book. But he talks about the concept of how so many of us talk about how we want to achieve something. He gives the example, he wanted to be a rock star, right? So he was like picturing, being up on stage and everybody's worshiping him, and it's just like, going away and whatever. Like, it's a great vision to have. Everybody, you have your dreams, whatever it is. But he never achieved it, and he basically explained that the reason he did it is because he didn't love the process to get there, right? So the Beatles, they took every show that they ever were offered 7 days a week. Like anybody. So his concept, he flipped it on his head. Instead of saying, "What are you willing to go for?" or what are you willing to work for? He said, "What are you willing to suffer through in life?" So if we can really like assess that and think like, okay, I want a beautiful family, I want the perfect woman, and I want a job where I'm gonna be happy. Guess what? You have to go through a lot of people that you think are right for you and they're not, the right job for you that isn't. You're gonna have to, like, a million things. What are you willing to suffer through to get to that? So that's the point I guess I want to bring up. It's a fantastic question, it really is.
Impressive question.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're asking questions that are at least 5 years beyond, your age, which is great. So most adults, I mean, I think we can all agree at our age and older, are afraid to think on this level because then they have to face the fact that they have not and probably will not ever be courageous enough to think that way.
Yeah.
Or do anything.
Yeah.
Can I just say this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Some people deserve to suffer. And
Jeez.
yo,
Please, I'm listening.
I mean that. I mean that in every sense of the way. Yo, you said life is about when you're going after what you want. What are you willing to suffer through? But sometimes God gives His hardest battles to the strongest soldiers, and sometimes if you're not a strong soldier going through a battle, you're gonna fall. If you're consistently making the same mistakes, and that's the biggest thing that Harold was saying, you gotta learn from your mistakes, and you gotta learn fast. And if you can learn from the mistake of someone else, it's best to do that. But man, if you keep making the same mistake, at some point in time, man, you just deserve to suffer until you can figure it out. You put your head down and grind and come up out of that hole. But it's not being mean. Some people deserve that. Sometimes that's the only way you learn.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But so many people make that mistake in their life every single day. They're doing the same things. They're making the same habits or the same patterns, and they're expecting things to be different. So that's a fantastic.
It sounds like I don't got no heart, but like when he said it, it really honed in on, because I've been saying this for a long time now. And like, I don't know if I've not been able to put it into the right context because, yo, I watched my mom suffer.
Yeah.
and it's blossomed into a beautiful life, man. But I watched her suffer.
Yeah. Suffer sincerely too. Some people are just, right, you used to always hear is people are sincere, but they're just sincerely wrong sometimes. And, and you have to kind of accept what their mentality was at the time and what they've been willing to digest themselves, right? But I'll go back to Hyrule here, but one thing, the topic we're talking about is the best thing to always keep in mind is that all men, right, women, everything, including all humans, we're meant for growth, right? That's what we're meant for. So you have to be willing to create and recreate yourself to the path that you want to take. Right, so if I want to be a rock star, well, I got to dress like a rock star, right? I got to act like a rock star. I have to take on that personality of a rock star and create art like a rock star. If I want to be a CEO of a major corporation, well, I can't dress like a rock star, can I? Right, so I have to recreate myself and become that CEO, and talk like that CEO, and socialize like that CEO. So, mostly of what you're willing to go through and what pain or suffering or obstacles you're willing to take on is where you have to create yourself for that. And you'll get, like when I was coming up and I'm trying to do different things and get into business, I got friends that laughed at me. Oh, look at him, look, he's wearing a suit, Oh, look at him, look at his shirt, look at his haircut, right? Because it was just different. And it was one of those things where I can either say, fuck these guys, which ultimately a lot of them I did, but in the same breath, I can't judge them for that because it's all they were limiting themselves to at the moment, which I limited myself in the past as well. Right? So I think about how many people probably laughed at me when I was coming up saying, this guy's fucking dumb, he doesn't get it. Right? But when you're ready for that change and you're ready for something and you feel it, like these guys, when we got together to create this ACE idea, everybody wanted something. And it was meeting up and talking and trying to create that, and finally it's creating itself and that seed is growing to the point where okay, now we can start sharing this and putting the seeds in different fields and see how far we can take this thing. And another point to what Jonah was saying, man, with money, a lot of people kind of confuse this and they think, oh man, you're just money hungry, you just want to you only focus on money. And it's like, well, you have to understand, first of all, when you grow up without it, that's all you focus on because you want it, right? But you have to understand it and study it and become a student of those kind of things. And when you break it down, money's just choices. You know, a lot of people can agree on that. You know, if I have $10, I can get a McDonald's. If I have $100, I can get a steakhouse. So it's just a choice. The idea was that I'm hungry, and what can I afford? And it's the choice of the work that I put in that will lead me to what restaurant I'm walking into, right? So, you know, it's just choice. When you view it in that sense that it's just a choice, and they're choices that I'm creating, well, how many choices do I want to create for myself? You know, I'll never forget what a millionaire told me years ago. He asked me why do people, you know, build multi-million-dollar mansions and Lamborghinis and Ferraris. I'm like, I don't know, because it looks cool. He's like, no, man, they build those things so you can buy them. So now you have the choice whether you want it or not. Well, if I want it, I got to work hard. I got to make those kind of choice money to drive and live in those things. You know, so that's going to go back to that point on there as well. And also with practical success, I know somebody mentioned this earlier. For the listeners out there, with this instant success, is it something that exists? Absolutely, man. And one thing that you have to keep in mind is keep yourself prepared, right? Luck is proper preparation meeting opportunity. So if you're prepared, an opportunity comes knocking, fucking take it, right? Don't say, oh, I gotta suffer 10 years because these guys told me I'm not gonna take this opportunity. No, man, take it. If you're prepared, take it, but prepare yourself to take it. But other than that, for practical success, which is the majority, the 99%, it is going to be that daily grind, and it's going to be that hard work. But, you know, work hard, sweat, cry, you know, bleed, but then make it look easy. You know, and that's the point. And that's why a lot of people say, man, this guy looks like he got success easy. No, closed doors were hard, but we'll make it look easy because this was my journey, and I'm going to suffer. I don't have to sit there and say, you don't know what I went through, you know, unless you ask, you know, but that's kind of some of the points that I'm taking from the combo there, and then we'll go back to Hyrule here. I know you were going to kind of go a little deeper on it.
Nah, you I like the way you summarized that. That was spot on. And basically, I was just gonna, cause Malachi had asked, all right, tell us a little bit more about us and what have you. And I think I kind of just jump into the mission, to the cause, because that's what I believe in. That's what I really want to come across tonight. But I guess a little bit more on me and who I am and where I came from and what I've done. You know, my family, you know, they came to this country from other countries, and I guess I'm technically first generation. I lived in another country. I lived in South America for about 5 years, and I realized, you know, living in a different country, seeing some of the things that you see, and then coming to the US and having it almost be like a blissful environment, but yet so secluded. It was like opposite spectrums of one another. You know, when I lived in Colombia in South America, it was very community oriented, everyone very tight, but yet you saw sex, drugs, violence, adultery. Like that was common. But then you come here to the United States and it was very divided, but peaceful at the same time. You didn't really see a lot of those things as much, right? And as not as in the open as you saw living in South America. So just having those experiences really young framed my mind differently. And I can't really explain what exactly that is, but I just knew that my skin was different than most other people because of what I have seen and been through really young, and seeing what my family had done to each other, to other people, and all of those disruptive areas. So just having seen that very early on in my life, and seeing the other side of it when you come here to this great, you know, place of freedom and peace, right? It kind of sets you up for, now you have a choice. What are you gonna do with your experiences? As a young boy, having these experiences, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna follow these type of things and continue doing what I've seen, what I've known? Or am I gonna understand this new land, this new place, see how much my family has suffered, but also see the grandiose opportunities that we literally have here. Everyone is privileged here in this country. Everyone. There's places in the world that this is a figment of their imagination, guys. So the amount of opportunities that every single person has, every single person in this room, every single person watching and listening, the amount of opportunities are endless. Because you look at any of our neighbors down south, go down south further, go out west or east, either way. It's not a bliss as you see it here. It's not a bliss. So, with that, it comes, part of who I am, right? That's who I became. I decided, I took control of, despite me knowing these traumatic, having gone through traumatic life experiences as a child, I knew that I was in an area, in a land, in a place that didn't matter. I can still do good for myself, most importantly, so that then I can trickle and pass that on to my family. Remember, guys, my family was already other country, immigrants, trials and tribulations. My father was in jail, adultery between the family openly, shit on the fucking movies, right? I didn't want to live my life like a movie, and for a long time I did, because that's what I knew. For me, I think the trigger, the moment of realization, and this may sound kind of cheesy, but it's when I met my wife. She reminded me of family values, even though her family had gone through similar traumatic experiences. So I give her kudos for taking control and realizing that she didn't have to live that way. She wanted to live differently. So that's where the synergies kind of connected. So now, present day, that's my philosophy. That's my day to day. I know that I wake up with a choice. Am I gonna have a shitty day, or am I gonna make today a good day?
Powerful day.
So a powerful day.
So, yeah, and that's he comes with it every day, which I love about that too. But so bringing it back to ACE, and what we're trying to achieve here. Things that we talked about is, this all sounds great, right? We've heard messages like this many a time. I mean, that's a great story, it really is. But nobody's been able to identify what is it in the people that make the decision to change their life for the better, as opposed to somebody who hasn't, right? So I don't think we're equipped, nor are we looking to change somebody's brain, or we're not trying to bring in the guys who are going to eventually not take, or they're going to take for granted what we're offering anyways. We're trying to bring in the ones who are hungry and start there, right? We take them, we give them a place to go. We triage, it's almost like a triage. Triage them, you teach them, you coach them, you have that consistent relationship with them, so that you actually get some numbers under your belt, of guys that are going to go out and do a carbon copy of what you're trying to do. And eventually, if they do that same thing, the idea is that eventually the folks that are not driven, that are making decisions, that are poor or whatever it is, they're outnumbered. And it's socially unacceptable for them to be that way. We're trying to, I guess on a grandiose scale here, change the landscape of what it means in underserved areas, or whatever it may be, how it is to be in those places, what it means to live and exist, and your identity there, the tribe that you're a part of, or whatever you want to call it. If you can change that, I think our idea is that can change everything. It's just an identity thing.
I'm gonna, this is how it gets juicy here. So going back to what you were saying then, how do you identify who's hungry and who's not?
So that's some of the conversations we've had, right? Of it's almost like marketing. You have to figure out who's my target audience here? What does it matter to them? And I've done a little bit of research on the subject and that sort of thing. So it might be activities, it might be posting in high schools or something like that, or local colleges, junior colleges, community centers, wherever it may be. and actually using science and data to like bring people to events. And maybe those events start off with just kind of like a social hour. We're not trying to lecture them. We're not trying to do anything. It's just like, hey, you know, you can be here and you're cool. Like it's an hour, a couple hours, whatever it is. I think the mistake that a lot of organizations make is they try to have these one-off events where it's, hey, come here and you'll get food and we're going to teach you about this subject and you're going to be great. And my company's marketed, so I'll get a little business out of this. Nobody cares about that. You know why? Because they don't even know who that person is talking. So what we're trying to do is be consistently in these people's lives, the same people, kids, young men, over and over and over, so they know they can trust us because we keep coming back. And once you do that, you can start implementing wisdom, you can start implementing knowledge, you can start implementing things and they actually listen to it. It's not going to be 100%, but it's going to be enough, you know? It's going to be better than nothing.
So off camera, Hiro had a really good spiel about the lack of people caring and why we're starting it. Is because of these older programs nowadays. What was that you were saying? Because I might have something to that.
So just being out there and kind of seeing what's there now, right? My analysis, my observation, whatever you want to call it, is that there are groups that used to be doing what we're trying to do, but this was a long time ago. And what's ended up happening is that these groups are now aged. So you have founding members that are aged, that are retired, that are all set up, comfy, retired from one of the big companies, right? So resources for them is not a question. It's where can I spend my time? Who am I going to have lunch with now? You know, what am I going to do today, right? Those older civic organizations, if I may call them, they're set up. They don't have the energy to pull people up, right? And then the organizations that are there serving in one capacity or another, you know, they're serving mostly to each other. So you have the greater population not even knowing that this resource exists. So those are the two things that just kind of being out there, being a diverse male, going through life, trying to figure out my way, that I've realized. There's civic organizations out there that do great things, but they're aging. So their desire to pull upward is not really there. And then there's other organizations that are doing it, but amongst each other. So the greater population, the truly underserved population, doesn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Or it's connected directly with some sort of institution that ultimately is trying to make money. Colleges, business, you know, in my experience anyway, is a lot of times those community groups can sometimes be deceiving because they have a good heart, but they're ultimately trying to recruit people so they can make money in some way.
Yeah.
And so what you guys have put together with the ACE group and your passion, I think is outstanding. As we get here towards wrapping up, I think what I'd like to do is maybe just go around and do what I like to call an actionable item, or something that is something that a listener or somebody listening to this or watching this podcast it's an actionable thing that they can take away, that they could do right now, that they could do tomorrow morning, that they could do over the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks, to either get engaged locally here with you guys, or engaged in their own personal lives, or even if it's just a small decision that they could make to help themselves and make themselves better and take that step forward. And I'd love to hear from you guys, just, you know, on our way out, one small actionable item for the listeners. And I can start if you want, or we can start here with you, Oscar. I'll go ahead. So my actionable item for everybody is pretty simple. Do something uncomfortable every single day. And why I say that is because so many people in today's culture live in a comfort zone. And it's bizarre. It's like they wake up every day and they try to find a way where they don't have to do anything that makes them uncomfortable. Whether that's, hey, today I'm going to skip school and watch Netflix all day, or I'm going to skip practice because my foot hurts. Or, you know what I mean? There's always a reason. There's always an excuse. It's like people have endless excuses for not doing things. And I would just like to challenge everybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be something physical. For me, it tends to be something physical because I'm a young guy and I like to work out, right? So I'll do something every single day that physically challenges me. But that could be something mentally. Pick up a book, right? Pick up a book you haven't read. Discover an idea that maybe you've never thought about, or whatever. Maybe have a real life conversation with a real person and not over a cell phone or through a social media. Sit down with somebody who you haven't had a conversation and you've been avoiding for the last 6 months, right? Do something uncomfortable and do it every single day. I heard a great quote one time, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember who it's from, but it said, change comes at the edge of discomfort. And for me, that's extremely powerful because a lot of people think that change comes, like we talked about, instantly, or it just comes, eventually I'll get around to it. No, you won't. You won't eventually get around to it. You have to do something that challenges and makes you uncomfortable every single day. So, Oscar.
Nice. What I would probably say, if it's something that you're gonna do, let's say tomorrow or today or whatnot, I would probably say be present. And this was something I struggled with and still work on because I'm so into my mind and so into the next move and so into what are we gonna do next that I'm constantly either living in the past or the future, right? So I'm constantly thinking of what I've done or what I can do better. But sometimes, man, we forget just to live in the present, just to really have a real conversation with somebody. Go outside, man. Stare at what's real, what's in front of you, and what is there right now. And I think that's important because as you start to be present and realizing what's around you right now, you start to realize how far you've gotten and where your choices have gotten you and what kind of surroundings you've created for yourself. Because everything that we have around us, we've created one way or the other. We've made choices to be here tonight, right? And in this podcast and in this group called ACE and in this Idiot Philosophers realm, right? We've all done something to get us here. So everything that we have in the present is because of what we've thought and took action upon, and it's brought us here. So life is beautiful, man. At the end of the day, we do it for a reason. One day we're here, next day we're gone. But just that moment, man, living in that present moment for at least, doing an hour a day. I know it's tough and everybody's got bills and stress and all this stuff going on, but that's part of life, right? Don't be a pussy. So just be present, so that's something that I'll bring out to people out there. It's something that I'm working on myself.
Start big and work your way back. I'm big into planning. I think school does a really good job of showing you the end goal, which is graduation, and then it works you all the way back to showing you you're starting as a freshman, right? So it's pretty much the same thing. And for those that don't know what it is at all to even start to write a plan out tomorrow. Plan to write down what you want to do tomorrow. And then start to block off some time to make sure that you're working on that.
Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Beautifully said. So start big and work your way back. It's how I've made my goals practical.
And it's what I tell my guys that work with me every day. Do not let your poor planning become my emergency.
Facts.
Don't do it.
Facts.
Because I will I'll hang up on you.
I would say, going along directly with what you two are saying, I want everyone, including you guys, everyone here, take a moment to yourself. Probably when the best moment is when you're laying down in bed. When your eyes are closed, picture yourself in the middle of the room and the sharpest clothes you can think of, whether it's a expensive suit, whether it's the newest kicks with the freshest jeans and button up, however you envision yourself successful. And do this with your eyes closed and just picture yourself ultra successful in the middle of a room, in the ocean, wherever. And then picture photos of yourself successful just raining all around you. And have this mental image of not just you successful, but photos of you successful raining all around you. I started doing that when I was a kid, probably in my early teenage years. And I couldn't even tell you where I read this before. But the more I pictured myself and the more I saw these photos, the clearer it was that my purpose was to get there, was to become that. From there, do what these guys are saying. Develop your strategy. Write down your short, mid, and long-term goals. Because when we have something written down that's for us, it just becomes that much more realer. That's what I would leave off.
Awesome. Thank you. Teddy, wrap us up.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a practical guy. I'm very pragmatic. So I'll give you guys a simple one. Get the fuck out of bed. Wake up early. Every successful person on the planet does it. You don't have to be a millionaire to wake up. I wake up at 4:55 a.m. every morning. I read, I write, do a little bit of yoga, maybe some abs or something like that. And you know what? It's just a little bit. You're logging just a little bit more hours of doing something that you were not going to do, what you wanted to do every single day. So I do that, and I implemented lunch workouts because nobody wants to work out before work, nobody wants to work out after work. So if you log 30 to 40 minutes during lunch, that's 30 to 40 minutes every single day that you're adding 4 to 5 times a week that you weren't going to do anyways. Just take an honest look at your life and just be fucking real about it, man. You're gonna suck at a lot of shit, you know? Like, I suck at pretty much everything I do, except for like 3 things.
That's not a reason to not do it.
Exactly. But I refined that process, and I found those things because I've worked through it. I found it out by doing it, and I've seen enough people, I've sought out enough people through reading and through just looking for that. Because I knew I was worth more than that, and I think all of us know that we're worth more than that, which is why we strive for anything to begin with. That I do it. So just know your worth. Get the fuck out of bed. Wake up and just do something you weren't gonna do before.
I love it. Get the fuck out of bed, folks.
Fantastic. To the great late Jim Rohn, formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. Love that guy. That's beautiful.
If listeners, people here want to get a hold of the ACE group, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you guys? You guys have a website, phone number, email?
Call the president.
Call the president. Is that in the works? What do we got?
Yeah, everything's being set up currently, so all the social media stuff will be up there. But look for us, man. It's ACE, out here in Hartford, Connecticut, Association of Community Empowerment. So just look for us. I mean, you're definitely going to see a lot of stuff from us in the upcoming months, especially over the holidays. And we're out there. So just remember these names, remember these gentlemen, because we are definitely going to make some noise here in Connecticut. So.
Awesome.
Don't be afraid. You see us, come talk to us. Even if it's another person you think is successful, even if they're not successful, just don't be afraid to talk to people. You'd be surprised what you learn just by human interaction. Someone said it before, put the phone down, look up. You're missing out.
Well, this has been first episode of Idiot Philosophers.
I got a philosophy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Take us away.
Take us away. Finish it up.
I hope you these lessons, better yet, I pray you survive them. For success cannot endure without knowledge, and ignorance is the fastest way to failure.
Amen.